what has your year been like so far? Anything that's kind of popped out in your memory that you're like, huh, that was interesting, an interesting case that maybe we could talk about for a minute?
Yeah, that's a great question, Laura. One of the things I've actually been seeing this year quite often is that people, end up coming to me after they've tried a couple things. That's kind of the frequent theme that I see just overall. They've already tried some supplements, they've already tried some diet modifications, and they just feel stuck. But especially this year so far, many people that I've noticed have been actually working with a lot of functional health practitioners or even, naturopaths, and they still feel stuck, like there's something missing. And that's one of the kind of unique pieces of my approach is that I combine both the physical, so gut health is the pillar that I put my physical work under, with emotional energetics. And that emotional energetic
Mm.
piece is something that I think a lot of people are just really craving right now, especially with this kind of shift in seasons. There's this new energy coming in, quite literally, with Mother Nature, and we are human beings, and we are wired to follow, nature's seasonal shifts as well with our body. But kind of beyond that, almost on this like energetic spiritual level, I find a lot of people are becoming ready for that, which is really exciting because that is sometimes some of the most profound shifts that I do see in my work. The physical aspects are very important and equally important. And those emotional, energetic aspects, when we tap into those, that's when I literally see, people's eyes widen and like the weight literally lift off of their shoulders and their body relax for the first time in years. So that's just kind of this common theme that I've been seeing, especially recently.
Yes, and your background is in physical therapy. So, how do you feel that though that um how do you feel that that modality and that expertise, because could you actually explain what kind of school you had to do to get that type of attain that type of level of licensing or that level of work?
Yes, absolutely. So as most practitioners, we have our own journeys, right? And looking back, I'm like, I couldn't have planned it any better. And I had no clue that I'd end up here, right?
Mhm.
But so initially, I received my doctorate in physical therapy. Go Huskies for those from, Yukon and the Connecticut area. And so the interesting approach is that with a doctorate in physical therapy, we have all of the medical background. So, medical school and physical therapy school have a lot of the same prerequisites, basic classes. The difference, which I'm so grateful for, is that we are never indoctrinated in the idea that here's a symptom, this is the prescription for it. Like that is the part that's missing, quote unquote, that I'm so grateful that it's missing because I was never indoctrinated in this approach. And because of that, with physical therapy, I've done acute care clinicals at NYU, right in the middle of the city in huge hospitals. I've done rehab work. I've done outpatient orthopedics. And so, even chest physical therapy, wound care management, we get such a diverse background with what we do and our training that's really unique to most medical professionals. Now, on top of that, we only have holistic approaches to work with as physical therapists. And so that was what really got me so passionate and in love with this profession because I saw the magic of these holistic approaches, such as manual therapy, movement, certain specific exercise, etc. And on top of that, what really drew me in was the amount of time that we had to spend with our patients. So most physical therapists, you're seeing them for a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes, and you're supposed to be getting one-on-one time with them. Now, I know in many physical therapy clinics that does not happen, unfortunately, because of business models and things like that. But I was lucky enough that the places where I did my internships and where I did work, we did have the opportunity to actually get to know the person. And we're seeing them on a regular basis. So you have a heart to heart and soul to soul connection with this person. It's not just a name on a piece of paper. I'm finding out about their lives, about their kids, about their job, about their relationships. And through that process, I realized that that is where the healing happens, because it's not just a body part that we're treating. It's not just a condition. It's not just diagnosis. It's a person. It's a person. It's a human being. And what I didn't realize all those years ago is that I was actually already starting doing some energy work, because what I ended up specializing in is orthopedic manual physical therapy, essentially a form of body work. So I went on to complete residency and fellowship in that. And I had a fantastic mentor who started introducing me to some energetic practices. And it's interesting because I remember being skeptical at first, and then experiencing it and then seeing the impact it had on my clients, where again, people would like eyes widen, be like, I haven't felt this pain release in years, or whatever it may have been. So I really saw that impact. Now, kind of tying it back, I also have a degree in nutrition, which again, at the time I was like, oh, nutrition's cool, like I like it, fulfills my requirements for school, etc. Let me do it. So I did my nutrition degree, and little did I know how important that was, because it gave me the basics for, again, gut health. Now,
Mhm.
having that background, when I went through my personal journey and my daughter's journey, I still made all the mistakes, even with that degree, because there's so much that we just don't learn in school. And so that's where the personal experience, the additional study, mentorship, training really ties it all together. So that's kind of the long story of my journey, but it's so interesting how the pieces kind of fell into place. And so now I have the background, I have the training, right? The traditional quote unquote training for what I do. And then it's this personal experience and really deeper work that I'm able to integrate and tie in together now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there won't be many holes in the assessment process because you have all of that experiential knowledge to physically look at a person or have certain questions about how they're moving, their mobility, and their physical look to them that you can then understand or even have patterns that you can determine for how a person actually is feeling or even their energy, their what's going on energetically in their body. So that's pretty amazing that you have that to tap into. And I'm glad you did nutrition because you're right, there are lots of holes in the medicine conversation in regards to that. And of course, if you're doing a manual hands-on, what else is this person consuming that would alter the overall terrain of the body or the chemistry of the body? And of course, all the nutritional and neurotransmitter everything else, you know? So it's like it really is kind of a good fusion to have all of that included in the process. So yeah, how are you finding the physical therapy is kind of helping you when a client comes to you in that initial assessment intake before they turn into a client?
Absolutely. And, that really goes to not just the physical therapy aspect, but the further training that I had. So with residency and fellowship, we were not just taught how to be, wonderful with our hands. That's always great, but it's how are we looking at patterns? How are we identifying not just movement, but also health in general? How are we looking at inflammation, comorbidities? So it is this bigger picture approach that I'm able to use from that training, that really, once you start being able to assess people on this bigger level, right? And so this is where there are people that come to me with back pain. Just recently, someone came to me specifically with back pain, and that's where, again, the orthopedic piece really shines. And again, there's things missing, right? So if we're only looking at movement, but we're not, like you mentioned, looking at, well, what are you eating, right? Is your diet increasing inflammation, or is it supplying all of your nutrients, or how is your body able to digest that and utilize that, right? So it's looking at that bigger picture that's so important. And at the same time, someone may come to me with digestive issues, and the back pain is kind of a secondary thing that they've just lived with for their whole life, and they're not seeing the connection yet from the digestion to the back pain, etc. So again, it's kind of being able to go front to back and back to front, if that makes sense, depending on what the person's presenting with, and tie in all of that together.
Oh, great. So I want to shift this conversation a little bit to maybe some like things that are going on that have become more popular or we see in recent studies, kind of a drive by people or consumers. Of course, there's a lot of shifts happening in food discussion and in the media. Specifically, I've seen a lot of trending topics around microplastics recently. We just had the study come out saying there's more microplastics in a little bag of tea. There's tons of particulates going into our body. And also microplastics are aggravating and creating chronic illness. So as a real connector here, what would you say about that?
Absolutely. So, one, we need to have awareness of what we are putting into our bodies. And, it goes beyond food. That's the thing. Like you mentioned, the tea bags, right? Like myself, I only use loose leaf tea for that reason. We don't know what's in those bags. But then it goes beyond that into even, what are we storing our food in? What are the utensils that we're using and the pots and pans made of that we're cooking with? What are the personal products that we're using? What are the cleaning products that we're using, right? So that can seem overwhelming to some people depending on where they are on their journey, right? And I want you to know that small shifts will make a big difference. So starting somewhere, right? If it's just getting rid of the plastic Tupperware and switching to glass, right? Like see if you can choose one step to take that feels good to you, that doesn't feel overwhelming. And quite naturally, I think most of us on this holistic journey, like the steps just fall into place because once you do that, you're like, well, I just want mason jars now. And next you want, all the herbs, etc. So the awareness and then taking a small step, whatever that feels good for you is going to be key. And then at the same time, we need to support our body's detoxification because our body has innate natural detoxification processes and
Mhm.
pathways. And this is beyond like sometimes we see these like cleanses and like do this 3-day detox, etc. And while those may have a place, we need to look at our literal blueprint, our body's blueprint, right? So our colon, are we having a full bowel movement every day? Like not just microplastics, but other toxins that we accumulate on a daily basis. Like our body is made to detoxify. It's one of our natural processes. So things like sweating, again, lymphatics, like movement, all of these things are so important to make sure that we are having these key pieces in place so that our body can do what it's meant to do. Now, there's more nuance to it because we need to be, again, nourishing our body appropriately. So all these pathways can happen appropriately on that biochemical level, etc. However, we need to make sure that we are paying attention and supporting our body for that detoxification process because we are being bombarded, like let's be honest, right? We're being bombarded by toxins left and right, from heavy metals to air pollution to, again, half the things in our homes nowadays are non-organic and they are creating indoor pollution, etc. So that's kind of the thing is decreasing our toxin load as much as we can and then supporting those natural detox processes. I know microplastics are trickier because there's some research that says that they are forever right in our body. And I also believe in the power of belief. So when we give up our power to that statement versus believing in the innate wisdom of your body and trusting that with the proper support, it can detoxify what it needs to.
Definitely seems like we're coming to this like new awareness of what we already were aware of. Like I think we already knew that we shouldn't be having so much plastic around, but um it is kind of coming to a place where we're being exposed for our own wastefulness. And that in a sense is a good thing because the more like receipts, like payment receipts you have lying around, the more you're exposed to xenoestrogens. So they're going to wreak havoc in your bloodstream because there's too many cranky estrogens floating around. But it's great that in the plant world, we have the cruciferous vegetables that help bind to these cranky estrogens to literally pull them out of the body. So it is awareness. It's also like limiting the amount around you. And because otherwise you can't have that control piece in this whole thing. Um, so when it comes to gut health, what is like, I know that there are different technical reasons why a gut becomes unhealthy. And I know it's individualized, of course, for each person, but gut permeability, that is like the ability for the gut to not be creating leaky gut, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So leaky gut is literally the root cause of so many chronic conditions, if not all of them, to at least some extent. And so, for those who aren't familiar with it, I always give this kind of, really basic example is if this is your gut wall lining, there's tiny holes in there in between my fingers. And so this is when you eat, for example, or you're exposed to things that end up in your stomach, right, and down into your intestines. The food that gets broken down into the appropriate size is able to pass through those small holes. Now, with inflammation, so this could be toxin exposure, specifically pesticide exposure has definitely been shown in the research to increase this. The holes essentially in that gut wall lining increase, they get bigger. Now, this also happens with stress. This also happens with, for example, if you just have constant inflammation from, again, toxin exposure, or even if you have a food allergy and you're just consistently repeating that insult, we can say. Antibiotic use is a huge one. Even other prescriptions, even over-the-counter prescriptions, NSAIDs like aspirin, etc. So all of these things will increase that leaky gut. It'll make those holes bigger. And again, when we talk about modern times, right, who doesn't have stress now? Who is, who hasn't had antibiotics in their lifetime? Like that's very rare to find at this point, right? Hopefully, again, the tide is switching for that. But
It's
so
in
what
the food too.
I'm sorry.
It's in the food.
Oh, exactly. I mean, food, pesticide, it absolutely, herbicide, etc. And so when we're talking about those holes, what now happens is that when you ingest food and you are not digesting it appropriately, which most people aren't, now these molecules that your body doesn't recognize are entering your bloodstream. That's what they pass through that leaky gut into your bloodstream. And guess what gets activated? Your immune system. Your immune system's going, whoa, what is this? This is a foreign invader. Let me attack it. And so this happens over and over again. Now, in addition to food particles, we're getting toxins passing through. We are getting viruses and other microorganisms passing through. And our immune system is just on high alert. And then from this is the root cause of how food allergies develop. This is how autoimmunity develops. This is how chronic inflammation develops. In our gut, it's also our built-in pharmacy. So this is where our hormones and our neurotransmitters are being generated. And again, I put detoxification and holistic nutrition under gut health because it's kind of like this trifecta almost. And so if our gut health is impaired, then our detoxification processes are impaired. And then we're not able to get rid of the toxins that are causing the problem in the first place. They recirculate and they wreak havoc in the system. And that's literally the process of why there's so much chronic disease nowadays. And again, we're seeing it in children even, and the conditions that were only for adults are now showing up in children. So it is so important to start supporting our gut health with, again, some simple strategies like eating organic, ideally from a local farmer, someone you know and trust, you can see, or growing your own, knowing that, again, they're not being sprayed with glyphosate, and Roundup is the one that is kind of gotten the most attention because of how drastic the impact
Yeah.
is on your body, etc. So, that's
Yeah.
like a great step to start with.
Yeah, if you see a neighbor spraying it, I think it's in your own priority to alert the neighbor and say, you know what, the way that you're doing your backyard is impacting my personal health, and here's why. And there's tons of literature. So that's more important in the cities when you literally have, very local little areas that you can see people doing what they're doing. In rural areas, it might not matter as much. Although there they pretty much do it liberally because it's whatever is cheapest or easiest at the local stores. But all of these things, and that's the thing, the products will lower in cost if we're doing more high demand of those products. It'll happen to your eggs too. If you were able to collectively help all of your neighbors in one specific area at your one specific grocery store all shop organic eggs, all those organic eggs are going to be a lot less expensive because you did a grassroots attempt to shift the supply and demand, which I think people don't, they get so stuck in their individualized things, but we all know that it is group work that can actually influence how these decisions are made. So we like to complain a lot on our social media, but you can turn that and advocate for yourself, and it will actually be able to work on a local level to get the things you need. Or, like Dr. Beata said, go to your farmer's market. Or even better, have your own chickens. Most people can. I have a fox in my backyard, so it might be a little tough for me. We have a great family of foxes, but you can still connect with local suppliers. And yeah, I have people who ask me all the time, where should I get the herbs from? I'm like, nowadays, grow it yourself. Oh, I can't grow. Well, learn the skill sets because you actually can. And it's going to have much better control because you can control your soil, you can test your soil, you can know exactly how it was treated and how it was grown and harvested. And that's going to be so helpful for people who have chronic illness already or autoimmune, where your immune system is already overly sensitive or inappropriately reacting to this leaky gut or to other things that are in your environment. Um, so yeah, it sounds like a really strong assessment, and thank you for painting that picture, Dr. Beata, of just kind of like how you prioritize where in the body to focus on first, not to mention how you reframe detox not as this like acute thing, which I think a lot of people like to think. They're like, oh, I need to detox. I'm like, yeah, but you probably only detox regularly or in a quarterly way. And then you said, tapping into your awareness of how to properly detox, and why. And I don't think it's a chicken or the egg situation when it comes to leaky gut and those kinds of gut issues, but I do see in holistic methodologies that the gut is like the primary mechanism for overall vitality and health. We see this with the gut health and the fire in the gut with Ayurveda and other holistic schools of assessment. So it's interesting that even with your physical therapy background and manual background, you are still now emphasizing the work of the gut as a primary tool for health for your patients and clients.
Absolutely. And when we look at that approach, that's why some people are like, wait, what do you like? What conditions do you work with? And I have like a little tree picture that I use, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
can't even fit all of them on there. And essentially, it's a picture of a tree with the leaves and branches, and in there are, I think I was able to fit in like 15 different conditions and presentations, everything from eczema to even infertility to weight that you can't lose, etc. And then in the roots, really, it's gut health, which is kind of the trifecta of holistic nutrition and integrative detoxification, and then emotional energetics. Because when we don't pay attention to the energies, because we are energetic beings, right? We are energy on multiple levels. When we look at things even like EEGs and EKGs, they are literally measuring our electrical activity in our body, and the emotions that we've experienced through our lifetime and how they impact us. Oh, thank you for pulling that up. Yes. And that one actually is I don't think I even posted the bigger one. This is just a condensed one on there. But you know, that's the thing. Some people are like, well, how is all this connected? Because the roots are the same. The roots are, when we work with the root causes, we can affect all of those signs and symptoms. Absolutely. Oh, where was I going with my other thing?
Electric. You were going
Oh, yes,
electric
yes,
on
yes.
us.
I was going electric. So our emotions, right? The experiences we've had in our human life, right? We are human beings. We have emotional experiences. We may have had traumatic experiences through our lifetime. We may have had smaller wounds, as I call them, you know, everything from as a child being told not to cry or not to get mad to actual abuse or neglect or, you know, everything in between there. We've all had our hearts broken at one point or another. We've all, you know, felt embarrassed at some point or another. And if we're not able to process those emotions at the time, because as children, if we experience certain things, they literally feel life threatening. So we block it, right? We don't want to feel that because it feels like we're going to die if we do, unfortunately. And so that becomes trapped in our field. And that's just the way that we are made. And again, some of us have experienced some pretty, you know, traumatic things through our lifetime. Now, it's not our fault that we experience things, and it is our responsibility to heal. And that's where we go kind of this level deeper with this spiritual aspect of our souls are here to experience this human life, right? And um, in one way or another, you know, there's all sorts of ideas. We could go into karma, we can go into other things as well, but our soul is here for this experience. And so we have this healing that is available to us, and it's an opportunity to shift our energy, to release these trapped emotions and weights that we've been carrying, sometimes for our whole life. And that, when we work with that, these are energetic blocks that can manifest in physical conditions, physical symptoms, physical
Mhm.
diagnoses. And that's again an aspect that some people are very aware of, and then some people this is like a completely new idea. And I remember
Right.
when this was new to me, and I was like, what do you mean?"
Yeah. I think if people have previous experience with like mental health counseling or some type of mental health care, that it's easier to tap into because they recognize some of the exercises or activities or requests that are coming out of that process. So, because that's usually about that mind body awareness or somatic work, even if you have a good counselor or ability to kind of tap into your, you know, brain balancing almost, and the awareness, so that you can lose um and get more grounded. I'm not explaining this great, but you know, if you have that kind of experience and a doctor tells you that's what you should do, most people take it seriously, and then they do it because that's what the doctor says will help you feel better, and then it either worked or it didn't, and you commit to it or you don't. And so yeah, we're getting into nervous system work now, and um nervous system has a huge effect on immune system. I mean, huge. We can't see these things as separate anymore. And nobody should be walking through the world now thinking the brain is separate from the body, you know, the mind is separate from the body. And so I think integrative is definitely like the now and the future because people are experiencing these things and they're trying to make sense of them, which can create a lot of confusion in the body too if you're like reacting and you don't know what's going on with your body. So this is great to make sense of that, what you're saying for sure. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Beata, on the web show today. We are going to be sharing Dr. Beata's links for her masterclass next week. That's Spring into Health, as well as her detox program. So if you are thinking about coming, I highly recommend it. And we are just one jump away from Dr. Beata. So if you have any questions about her, we'd be happy to answer those questions this week and next.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. It's been a pleasure talking as always.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Thank you, everyone.